Welcome to Attican Plays Railway Empire. All right, welcome back to another Railway Empire video. We're going to do by request the I almost said gold rush, the black gold scenario. And in that one, if you're not familiar with it, it's all about moving oil, which is black gold or Texas tea as they call it. And and the big thing here is about freight. You got to move a lot of freight and make a lot of profit with freight. So we're going to go with Roger, who gives us a 5% bonus. And you're going to notice our strategy is about research is going to definitely target. There are 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 5 good bonuses for freight. Each give you 8%, and then you get the 5 from him. 4 of those 5 you can come up with pretty early in the research if you target them, and we're going to talk about that when we get over to the research. But the first thing you have to do is build Kansas City up to 60,000 quickly. So the thing to do to build Kansas City quickly, it's deceptively simple to do, and I can see where it could be very, very hard. I mean, you could talk yourself right into making this really hard and doing it. If you emphasize the wrong things, you'll spend your money the wrong way. So you'll notice that Kansas City has nearby wheat, corn, and sugar. And one of the things you want to do is you'd be very tempted, I'm sure, to just run lines to Kansas City with those 3 things. And that's a bad mistake, because that spends your money when you don't need to, because you need to take advantage of the land transportation in this case and realize that it's going to get wheat and corn and sugar for a while, and that it's going to be enough to keep you going. What you need to do is focus on what they don't have. So one thing they don't have, of course, is meat. So we're going to, first thing, build a line to Wichita, and we got this nice beer up in Kansas City. We've got meat down in Wichita. So we're going to build a line, and we're also going to follow a rule. A rule that for me is, if the cities are worth connecting, they're worth doubling the track, and they're worth running some trains on. Don't get into this build a line and run a single train on it stuff, because your revenue will suffer. Your revenue will come in way too slowly. You'll sit there and wait for money, and you will fail your scenario. So build a connection, double track it, and run some trains on it so you can make some money. And that's what we're doing. Now here, what we're doing right here is the key to the entire thing as far as growing Kansas City, and that's running logs and milk into Kansas City right away. So it's set up to where Kansas City kind of has just enough to almost grow, but not quite. Typical, developers do a great job with this. Hats off to them. They do their math. And it's set up to teeter and almost grow, but it won't grow. And you need to push it over the edge. You push it over the edge with the meat from Wichita and with logs and milk. First thing's logs, of course, because that's what it needs. It starts out a little over 30,000, I think, and it has to hit 40 or so before the milk kicks in. But I went ahead and set it up because I wanted to have them both ready. And as soon as it hit the number, then the milk starts loading, and off we go. And I'm actually ahead of my discussion's a little ahead of where we are in the actual play right there. We're setting up the logs right there. Milk kicks in at 40,000, and as soon as it grows a little bit. So the first thing you want to do is get those logs in there. So now it's basically, if you think about it, it's getting wheat, which it needs. It's getting beer because it's producing its own beer from the wheat, and the wheat is another one it needs, and it's getting corn, and it's getting sugar. Now it's going to get logs, and it's getting meat from Wichita, and it will grow. And basically, you could probably stop right there and probably make it, but you can nail it if you go ahead and throw this milk in there, and do the rapid growth very quickly with reasonable spending, because you only have $500,000 to start this, and it's not a lot of money. It really isn't, and everything kind of far away. This whole map, everything's far away. There's a lot of long hauls in this one, and in fact, we'll talk about critiquing my play later on about long hauls. So anyway, that's kind of hereby. As soon as we have this set up and have it running, we'll have what we need to make Kansas City grow. And that's the first thing you have to do. The second thing you have to do is connect cities. And then the third thing you have to do is lay a bunch of track. It's like 4,100 miles or something of track. So the good news is when you double track, it counts twice. So if I run a 300-mile line, double track it with another, well, let's just call it 300 again. It's usually a little less. Let's call it 300 again. There's 600 miles. So we've laid quite a bit of track here already. But now we're getting the milk queued up, and we'll have now at this point, Kansas City's ready to go. I mean, really, you could say, okay, thank you, we're done with that. It's not there yet, of course, but it will be. You can see it's growing. Now, the thing we're doing here is I would refer you to the one I call the Winnemucca Challenge, which is one we did in free mode, which was really hard because we had to grow Winnemucca really quickly. It was worse than this. I mean, we had to grow it from like 10 or 11,000 to 60,000 in 2 years. But we did everything in that one, driving stuff to Winnemucca, and that's what we're doing here. So if you notice, I haven't done a warehouse down here, and I'm not going to. The reason being that there's so much going on, so many things that you have to get done in this one, that there's just that 200,000 that takes to start a warehouse is just not, you're not going to make it. But I will tell you this. This is also, I'm trying to fulfill 2 requests. I had the request to do the black gold scenario, and I've had a request to show I've had multiple requests to show a 3-city cluster. We've done in the warehouse series, we did the 2-city cluster, and it was ridiculously successful as far as growing the city. Well, now we're going to do a 2-city cluster, but it's not going to be here at the start. That's going to be interesting. So you'll have to hang on and see that. But my long-term strategy here is more than just growing Kansas City. I'm also thinking about this being set in Kansas and Missouri up here where we are right here, and then Texas, and of course they call it Texas tea. They don't call it Kansas tea. So this stuff is really going to happen in Texas, and we want to have a strong base. We want to almost have like a southern headquarters, the way I was thinking of it. You've got Kansas City up here as our headquarters, but we need a strong base of operation in Texas. And the other thing about this is that one of the objectives, kind of an optional one, is to produce 50 units of petroleum. Well, that says, okay, well, now we've got a new building, we're going to get a refinery. And that refinery, when you look in the city demands, doesn't even pop up until 115,000. So we're not even going to have the ability to build a refinery until we have a city of 115,000 that we're in, but then that would allow us to build it wherever I believe. However, that means we got to do some city growth. So what my overall strategy was, get through this first hurdle, which is what we're doing here, and then go down south. And that's our next line here is going down to Fayetteville and the other thing I did was I used Kansas City as kind of that northern hub for everything, because it's got that Standard Oil. You can see it there. That Standard Oil produces demand for oil, and that's the whole idea, is to pump that oil back to Kansas City. Well, so I decided to use, you've got 8 stations. If you have 2 large train stations eventually in a city, I decided to use all those as direct connections to something I wanted to do. So, I've got one of them will be the oil. So we're going to use a connection to oil. We're going to connect to Salina, however you say it, straight from Kansas City. We're going to connect to Fayetteville, straight from Kansas City. So we're going to connect those. Eventually, we'll connect all those things. The logged milk is already there, connected in. Corn and sugar will eventually, the wheat even eventually. I think I forget about the wheat for a long, long time in this one, but we eventually will connect it in. So we'll take. So I kind of actually went through and sorry, this is really nerdy, but I took the eight things and figured out, okay, based on where they fall north to south, which ones do I want to use in which um, platform of the eight that I would eventually have, so I could get it organized and not have lines running all over the place. So this part up here, even though it looks like it's kind of spastic, is really highly organized and very thought out. Now, later on, you'll see something else that's well, you'll see. No spoilers, no spoilers. Okay, so now we're connecting up Fayetteville, and we're following our rule. Our rule is, if it's worth connecting a city, it's worth double tracking. If it's worth double tracking, it's worth running trains and making money. And if you don't want to do that, that's fine. Just go ahead and connect. Like, for example, you could panic and say, oh gosh, I've got to connect 6 cities, and you could just build a single line and, okay, I got one connected now. I'll run from that one to some other city, and you could possibly finish, but I would argue that this method we're doing right here will finish faster because you'll actually have an income. You'll actually have money. Those trains will actually produce money. And here's one. This is by the way, a point where you kind of go, One other way to play this one, I believe, and maybe we'll give it a shot or a try sometime, is hang off. Don't get that Fayetteville line just yet, and hang in there until you have 400 grand, and build that factory in Kansas City. And you do want to, by the way, this game will show you, I think, as much as any that I've ever played yet, any scenario I've tried. You need to own factories, and we'll get into that later in different episodes of this, because this is going to be several. It's pretty long, but you need to own businesses. So I was really tempted to just hold off, put a kibosh on everything, and hang in there and see if I could possibly build an industry there. Now, the other thing is, can you predict what's going to be there? Absolutely. You got meat, you got beer, and I don't show it here, but when you look at the city, there's only 3 possibilities at this point. There's only meat, beer, and textiles. So eventually textiles will go there, just almost certainly. Now, it doesn't have to, and you might play it again, replay it, and actually get a different result. That's entirely possible. I think there's a certain randomizer that they use for this, but logic would say if I've got beer, I've got meat, then textiles are probably going to get placed by somebody. And that's exactly what happens on this one. So we got a shot at any of these office personnel you can get, grab them. Almost. I find the tunnel surveyors a little iffy because I avoid tunnels. I seem to opt for bridges. They almost always can be made cheaper than a tunnel, but occasionally you do build one. If you're going to build a lot of them, that guy, the guy who gives you the discount on tunnels, what I'm talking about, would be helpful. And you can. The other thing about those personnel is you need to kind of take a quick look at what they give you, because they are different. They have different ones will give you different characteristics and what have you. All right, so we're running automatic lines because we want to be able to move freight and passengers. I was tempted to do this as freight only, but you just don't, because it is it's all about getting. At one point you have to have 2.5 million in quarterly revenue in freight. That's a lot. I was tempted to just run freight to see how it would go, and I actually played through something, I forget what it was, for a while, just running freight just to see, can you build just a freight business? And it's really there's not much money coming in. You need those passengers and mail as to kind of augment your income, even if the scenario is all about something else. That's why we're running automatic lines here. Another thing, and maybe if you guys like this one and want to give it another shot with another option, we could run passenger lines. I could see running passenger lines and freight lines. But again, you get kind of driven. Let me stop here and point out that was research. Did you notice those two research? There are two 8% gains in freight income on the company table, and they're down on the bottom. So you kind of work your way straight over to them, and it'll cost you, I think it's 500 total research points to get to work your way all the way over and get both of them. So for 500 you can get those, and then on the one that's about your trains, the table about your trains, research grid there, you have two. They're right off the bat. I think it's called a refrigerator car and a cattle car, and they each give you 8, but they're 300 points apiece. So for 600, I think it was 6 units because the way they do those stars up there on the research. But for 500, you can get those two on the company chart, and for 600 more, you can get two on the train chart, and now you've got 8 times 4, 32% bonus on your freight income. And even if you weren't doing a freight scenario, it wouldn't be a bad way to go with your research in this time period. Now, we're talking about the time period of this particular one, because and I say that because all the charts are different. The research is different. The available research is different for every time period. But in this time period, that would be a good way to go to get yourself started, because that freight's going to be there, whether you're doing a passenger heavy emphasis or a mail emphasis or whatever. In this case, a freight emphasis. So we're off to a really good start here. It may not look like we've done very much, but we're doing well. And here we go. There, we got just one of them right there, and the next one next to it, it will be the last one we get, and that will on that chart for a while, on that set of researches. And so we're looking great there. We're bumping up our freight revenue as we go, and it's just helping us. I mean, want to get there as fast as we can, obviously. So now I'm looking to set up Salina. Now, another thing you can kind of do here is look at, you'll get these bonuses once in a while. And I was, shame on me, but I didn't hesitate. If I had a good bonus on one and I could just grab it with some cheap little line and just plug it into an existing line, and even if I never used it, I grabbed the bonus. Now, you can kind of play that game with this one to see what pops up as a bonus and wait, but I didn't want to wait. I wanted to get my connections and keep going, because waiting is not, typically in this game, or in most games, waiting is not the answer. Sometimes you can wait, and it's a good thing, but waiting is rarely the answer. It's usually, what is the single smartest build I could do right now? That's the trick. What is the smartest thing I could do with my money? But I don't want to sit there and hold my money, because holding your money is not making you more money. It just isn't. They don't pay you 14% CDs on that money. You got to go out and earn that money. And that's why also my feeling is, you don't hesitate to go in debt. I grab the debt because I know that I can build something that will make more than the percentage I'm paying on that debt. So I just go, and you'll see it in this one. We have some pretty impressive debt toward the end. Okay, so off to a great start, and we're just expanding the line. So I think, rather than trying to show you everything, I was tempted to show you everything, but I think I'd like to stop there and kind of fast forward a bit to where we've got some of the building done, that first bit of building. And you know what? Nah, I take that back. Let's pretend I didn't say that. Because the next thing we're going to do after we kind of pick this low-hanging fruit of Salina is, and see that queuing there? See how those guys are all stopped right there? That's something we need to talk about. To save money, I put repairs in Kansas City, which makes sense because everything's coming to Kansas City, right? Well, here's the trade-off with that. All these trains that are running any decent line are running up getting to Kansas City, kind of exhausted, so to speak, and getting serviced. So while they're being serviced, they're holding up the platform for all the people coming in behind them. So you get these queues lined up in Kansas City because that's the only place you're doing repairs. So you really want to spread your repairs out and try to have any long line. You want to try to have both sides getting the repairs, because that way you kind of spread the pain out and you don't have it all happening at the queue. The other thing, the queuing thing there that I should have done, it would have been would have taken a lot of foresight on my part, which, shaky there. But that log of milk line, and it'll eventually be a cotton line as well, I should have run it to a different platform. Well, I did run it to a different platform. I take that back. No, I didn't. That's right. I linked it up to save money. I linked it up with the
I like to drink wine
Wichita line. And it probably would have been a smart thing, because I have the platforms there. It would have been a smart thing after I had more money coming in, like now where I'm starting to make a little bit of money, to unlink it and run it down on its own dedicated line. That's the thing. It's so tempting in this game to want to be smart and look like, oh, I'm a real railroad man. I've got all my lines merging into a trunk line, and you've heard me rant about that before. Oh, I'm going to have this cool trunk line that's going to carry everything, and this game, it doesn't work, and it's not because so much of that you can't put all those trains on the line. The problem is when they all go, if they're going to come in like that, they tend to come into the same station, and when they do, it's really that turnaround at the station that kills you. That's what really slows down your whole system. We'll see this. We'll see a couple of examples of that, and this is like bad to me, bad play on my part, where we get a lot of queuing there. You saw that queuing there, and that wasn't horrible, but it was happening. And you'll see it with the oil coming in. You'll see it big time. And in fact, when we get to that, I'll bring this topic back up, but. In fact, there's several things I wanted to talk about there, but you'll have to kind of see it first. So I apologize. I keep teasing about what's coming, but I'm doing this as like a voiceover after the fact, and the important things to happen. There's always so much happening right now that's important, and there's so much coming up. This really is a good one. Because it's hard. It's surprisingly hard for a medium, and it's a good challenge, and you've got to think. You've got to plan ahead and do some smart things. So anyway, here comes that cotton line I told you was coming. Now, another way to play this would be to say, well, if there's cotton up there and we don't get a lot of growth, eventually Wichita is going to grow, because you can see it is growing right now. You can see the little green dot down there. It's growing because it's getting cattle over land. It's getting beer from Kansas City, so it's got just enough to hang in there and grow a little bit. But we could wait and say, well, there'll probably be another textiles. There'll be a redundant textile, like it seems like there always is, and we could feed that one. It'll be a shorter feed. I prefer to go ahead and feed the one that exists. I know it's there, and I'm hoping that if we feed the textiles in Kansas City, that what will pop up in Wichita will be a tailor that we can grow Kansas City fast enough that a tailor will be available, and if a tailor pops up in Wichita, then we're great. So, but you don't know for sure. You never know for sure what the computer is going to do for what industry is going to come, and you can't. It's a risky business to bet on it, but you can kind of figure it out. Oh, and look, I think we did get our tailor. If I'm not mistaken, I see there it is. So we got a tailor made for us, sort of tailor-made, sorry, and that way now this is beautiful, because now our cotton can run a long line, make a lot of money hauling cotton to the textile plant, and the textile plant's going to make textiles, which are, guess what, going to get shipped to Wichita. They would anyway, but now they're going to get shipped in volume to Wichita because Wichita needs it for their tailor, and the tailor will turn around and make clothes, which will get shipped back to Kansas City. Lovely. This is lovely. And so that worked out beautifully. So now we've got a bonus and we're trying to see if we can grab it. And here's where I get cheap. I don't have enough. I know I can't make it all the way down there, so I'm just going to plug it in the back and take the money like some kind of sniveling coward or dirty player or whatever it is, but I want that money. So I got my bonus, and now I can do the true connection. And I will, and as I told you, sometimes connect them and not even use them just to get that bonus, because that bonus can really help you at this stage. So we have to expand the station, and this is another good point. Don't avoid this running it. It would be so tempting to run this line in to the back end of that single platform and hope it doesn't clog up too much, and it will. So get yourself a dedicated line, and if you have to wait a little bit and double to expand the station, so be it. That's better than cramming it in there and then having a mess where they're queuing up, waiting on each other, coming in from both ends of that platform. So we made sure we doubled it up. The other thing is we set the repairs in that station, because now we've got that meat going directly in there, and it won't ever get to Kansas City, so it'll never get to the repairs that we have. So you have to but when you're tight for the money, you have to think about where you do your repairs and make sure you get them set up. But and like I said, eventually you want to have repairs practically everywhere. When you get that point where there's that beautiful point in the game where you can't spend it fast enough, you want to go back and set repairs everywhere, because that'll just actually speed everybody up. That'll speed everything up if you spread your repairs. So now we're going to go down and start. This is almost like phase 2. So phase 1, we got our little infrastructure going there. In fact, the reason I ran that cattle, one was the bonus. Obviously, the bonus was great. And then once we had the bonus, you'd want to do it anyway to make sure that Wichita is going to have a consistent supply of meat for Kansas City. Basically, that's it. But now we're moving on to phase B. We're running from Fayetteville to Dallas, and this is going to be our kind of our key area going forward. The key up here is that fast start. Do whatever it takes to meet your objectives and get your rapid city growth, early growth in Kansas City. But now phase 2 is to move down here and get our southern base of operations. So we're going to build a line from Fayetteville to Dallas, and that'll be a nice long line, make us some nice money. And I screwed it up too. Spoiler alert. Not this part. This was easy, but I'll show you what I screwed up later. Again, failure to plan ahead and think ahead and do it right. But anyway, that's for another video. So there's all kinds of you'll get to see me screw up 2 or 3 times in this little set. So here we go. We're trying to get that thing going. We're also bumping up our. I'm sorry. We're putting some staff on some of these lines, and this is just so obvious, but put your conductors on lines that are going to carry mail, because they give you mail bonuses. Put your security guards on your freight line. So if you got a long freight line that is dedicated freight, that's a great place to put a security guard. Now I'm here we go. Now we got that other one. Oh, and by the way, I forgot to mention there was actually an auction. I missed it totally. There's an auction where we got cattle car early, and that was just like, okay, thank you. That was just hallelujah. So now we've gotten I think we've gotten them all. If I'm not mistaken, we've gotten the 2 off the company chart. We've gotten the 2 that we wanted off the train chart, which are going to give us 4 8% bumps. So that's 32%, and actually it's more than that. I'm not sure how they do the math on that, but it's plenty. You're getting a lot of bumps, plus the 5% for Roger. Now we're going to connect up Dallas and start our southern base. And I'm thinking about how I want to orient and that's another thing you have to think ahead on is which way do I turn the station? It actually matters. Which way am I going to expand out those tracks, and where do I want the additional tracks to go? So I'm turning them the way I did because I know I'm going to go off to I've looked at this map and I've decided that I'm going to have a 3-city cluster down there. Spoiler alert. There's going to be a 3-city cluster down there, Dallas and Shreveport, because now you got a nice little meat and beer thing going, and Abilene, which is nearby and lines up nicely. So we're going to run a nice little 3-city cluster there. However, sorry, I keep giving these spoiler alerts. I'll stop right there. We are going to run a 3-city cluster down there. That'll come up later. We're kind of getting close to the wrap-up point on this first episode. And let's just kind of review what we accomplished. We got Kansas City grown very, very quickly. We're in the process of finishing off our 6 connections so that we'll have 6 cities connected. We still need to lay a bunch of track, and we've been double tracking most of this, so actually all of it, except for that cattle run, we've double tracked everything. So we're going to have to go out and expand a little bit more, but the thing of it is, down here when we start this 3-city cluster, we're going to be laying a lot of track to get all that set up and working. So it's all good. So now we're just going to set up our line between Fayetteville and Dallas. And remember the rule: if it's worth connecting, it's worth double tracking, and it's worth putting trains on. It's worth having enough trains running so that you're making money. Those trains do pay for themselves. So in this one, it's a long line, and you'll notice I didn't use the our fancy new tool new to me to set all those interim signals. I kind of, when I have a city to city, I'm going back to my old way, which is I divide it up with towers. I'll set a block, I'll add a block if I need it with signals, but I don't want all that tight spacing yet. I'm okay with it after it's up and running, but what I'm doing here is I want a delay. I want there to be these gaps and long blocks, a few long blocks, so that my trains will line up and they won't all just shoot out of the station at the same time. And it allows me to be a little bit lazy, because now I'm queuing these trains up as fast as I can between Dallas and Fayetteville. But you notice they're all queued up and waiting. Well, I don't want them all popping out, boom, boom, boom. I want them to have to wait for that next train to get past his signal so that they have a free block, because I don't want them coming out of the station right behind each other, because there won't be any passengers for them to carry. So, and I want them to spread out so that I get this nice flow where there's one pulling into Fayetteville at the same time there's one pulling into Dallas, and the ones in the middle are moving fairly nice and regularly and spaced out. That's what you're really wanting. You don't want them all piled up. I don't want them all flying out of Dallas, running up there and queuing up in Fayetteville and coming in one right after the other and one back out, and then all of them running in a line back down Dallas. I want them spread out. So that's why I'm not putting those signals in there. Now later, if you start adding stuff into the mix, then you're going to have to do it. Now, the other side of that is a freight line. This is a kind of a city-to-city line. A freight line, yes, there's no reason for them not to go as fast as they can go. So a freight line, I do tend to use the interim signals right off the bat and let them, just as soon as you've got enough freight, go. As soon as next train, as soon as you got enough freight, go. But these city lines, I want them spread. They have to be spread to maximize their profit. So, and the other thing, of course, if you were really diligent and a good player, which I'm not certainly not diligent. You would just sit there and click them off. You'd watch them and click them off when the next one hit the right place so that you could time them out. I'm way too lazy to do that. I'd rather queue them all up, bang, 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 but because I've planned it out, what I think is wisely, they will space themselves out. All right, so now we've got our 6 connections. We just hit Shreveport. We've got Shreveport, Dallas, Fayetteville, Salina, Wichita, and Kansas City. So we've got our 6. So we're going to wrap up this section right here, and we've hit 2 of our first 3 objectives. We've got Kansas City rapid growth. We've got 6 connections. And again, we're following our little principle. We're actually, I'm sorry, I'm slightly ahead of myself. We're right now going to get our 6th connection. There we go. There we got the task completed. Sorry, and now we're going to double track it back to Dallas and set up a line and start making some money running. And this is a nice one because it's going to be that beer meat combo. So we're going to start growing these two cities and making some nice income from the beer meat. So so now we can wrap up this particular session. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it'll help you become a better player, and I hope you'll join us for our next Railway Empire video. Thank you.